Is Deontay Wilder finally starting to realize that his incredibly foolish loyalty to Showtime actually backfired on him? Because in this interview right here, he says that he was sabotaged by Showtime. He says that the Showtime commentators were biased against him, not only in the Tyson Fury fight, but several of his other fights. And obviously he's saying this in the wake of Showtime turning down his Luis Ortiz rematch. They refused to show that on their network as a pay-per-view event. He also talks about the fact that, in his view, the public were influenced by the Showtime commentators who he says were biased against him in the Fury fight. And that led to so many people believing that Fury won and that Fury was bossing the fight. He also talks about Fury's showboating. He says that influenced the crowd and the viewers at home into thinking that he was doing better than he actually was. And finally, he once again asserts this claim that he actually beat Tyson Fury because Fury was given a long count in the 12th, according to Wilder, and that Jack Reese helped Fury out because he was emotionally attached to Fury because of Fury's story, and that really he should have been counted out and Wilder should have retained his, well, he retained his WBC belt anyway, but he should have maintained his winning streak. These are all the things Deontay Wilder says in this interview. Go watch the interview for yourselves and tell me what you think. But I'm going to tell you what I think. First of all, with regards to the stuff he says about Showtime, saying they sabotaged him and, the Showtime commentators are against him and all this kind of business. The only person who sabotaged you, Deontay Wilder, is yourself. You're not a very bright guy. You're a tremendous fighter, but you're not a very bright guy when it comes to business, when it comes to contracts, and when it comes to understanding what's really going on, because there are people around Deontay Wilder manipulating this man's mind. They got him like a puppet on a string. Because for you to be turning down a $120 million DAZN deal and talking about loyalty with Showtime because they've been with you since the beginning, that shows you right there that it's you, Deontay, who doesn't have enough intelligence to figure out that you were being played in that situation. How could they advise you to turn down, Al Heyman, etc., advise you to turn down $120 million? That's insanity. You should have known that Showtime don't have that kind of money anymore. Showtime are not willing to jump out the window and invest that much money in your career at this point. You should have known that. You should have known that Showtime behind the scenes was struggling. But yet, you talked about loyalty. You turned down life-changing, generational money, as you like to call it, Deontay. You turned all of that down. And now, you're saying that you were sabotaged by Showtime. So you've only got yourself to blame, really. Wilder's got himself to blame. The only person who sabotaged him is himself. I say countless times on this channel, in countless videos, that there is no place, there is no room in boxing for fighters to be loyal to networks, or fighters to be loyal to promoters, or fighters to be loyal to trainers or loyal to managers. There's no place in boxing for that. Your career is a short career. Yeah? You've got a very small window within which to make life-changing sums of money when you're a professional boxer. So you can't be loyal to networks. You just need to go to whichever network is going to pay you the most. Simple as that. Or whichever promoter is going to pay you the most. Yeah? Unfortunately, with Deontay, he's got Al Heyman, Shelley Finkel, and a bunch of people advising him who are really not working in his best interest. They're working in their own best interest. Al Heyman is working in the interests of himself and Fox primarily. And of course, DAZN are a direct rival to Fox. So he didn't want DAZN to end up with the biggest fight in world boxing, AJ versus Wilder. He didn't want that. Because Al Heyman, as an advisor, and most promoters think the same way, they're not looking at their fighter and just thinking, oh, my fighter's going to beat everybody. They're also thinking in their head, what happens if my fighter loses? That's why they have rematch clauses in contracts. Because Al Heyman is thinking about, okay, what if my guy loses? And so he was factoring that in when he looked at the Joshua Wilder fight. He was thinking, well, what if Deontay goes over there and loses to AJ on DAZN? Not only does that boost Anthony Joshua and Matchroom, who are direct rivals to Al Heyman and his business, but it also boosts DAZN through the roof. They just had the biggest fight in world boxing, and that is catastrophic for Fox. Al Heyman couldn't allow that to happen. He had to make sure that Deontay Wilder didn't take that DAZN deal and didn't fight Anthony Joshua on that particular platform, which is what he did. Working in his best interest and in Fox's best interest, but not in Deontay's best interest. But it's for Deontay to wake up and actually have some intelligence about him to realize that he got played by his own people. Unfortunately, he isn't going to realize this because he's not a bright man. He's a very emotional man, and emotional people are easy to manipulate psychologically. And this is what the bright people around him, the Al Heymans and Shelley Finkel's, are doing. They're manipulating this man. He doesn't know what's going on. He's a puppet for Heyman and Finkel. Okay, so the only person who sabotaged Wilder is himself, really. Because if he truly is a free agent, and I don't know whether he actually is, but if he truly is because he claimed he was, then he's only got himself to blame. He took the advice of those people who weren't working in his best interest. Now, as far as what he says about the Showtime commentary being biased against him, I don't think it's biased against him in general. I think the Showtime commentary were kind of emotionally caught up in the Tyson Fury Wilder fight. I think Tyson Fury is a very engaging character, and Wilder was missing a lot, okay, in that Fury fight. And Fury was making the most of Deontay Wilder's misses. He was kind of showboating and hot dogging him and goading him when Wilder was missing. And Fury's punches, of course, were a lot more cultured and straighter. So even though there wasn't much to split them in most of the rounds in terms of punches landed, Fury just looked the fighter who was more in control. And I think that did. So I'm agreeing with Deontay Wilder here. I think that did kind of give the impression that Fury was doing more than he was actually doing. Tyson Fury is not only a master of manipulating the public perception outside of the ring, he's also a master of doing it inside the ring, which is where it counts most. So I personally had no issue with the draw. I think that's perfectly fair. If Wilder hadn't scored those 2 knockdowns, definitely he would have lost the fight on my scorecard. But the knockdown rule is there. It's been in there in boxing for a very long time. And you get extra points, or your opponent gets points knocked off for being knocked down. So in my view, the draw was perfectly okay. But, you know, Tyson Fury's showboating did influence the crowd, the viewers, the commentary team to some extent. Somebody pointed out to me that a lot of the people who felt that Tyson Fury won and won by a good margin were people, and I'm talking about boxing people here, like Paulie Malignaggi, etc., Mayweather, were people who box defensively themselves. So they tend to be more inclined to side with a defensive boxer. Yeah. And maybe there's something to that as well. Maybe there's some kind of subconscious favoritism in the eyes of some fighters towards the guy who's more defensive and slick, as opposed to the guy who's more aggressive and who misses more and wastes more punches. At the end of the day, it don't matter how many punches you're wasting, it's how many punches you're landing. If one guy's wasting 20 punches around, but he's landing the same as the other guy, then it's still a pick'em round. And that is what happened in the first Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder fight. Where I take exception to Deontay Wilder in his assessment of the first Fury fight is where he says he won in the 12th round by knockout. He certainly did not. There was nothing untoward. There was nothing, dodgy about Jack Reese's count. It was a perfectly acceptable count. It was very close, but Tyson Fury did make it to his feet, and he actually bossed the rest of the round. I mean, Wilder needs to be looking at himself and saying, okay, how did this guy get off the canvas and not only manage to survive the rest of the round, but actually start putting pressure on me? How the hell did that happen? Wilder is just focusing on what he thinks he did to Tyson Fury in the fight. He needs to also focus on what went wrong for him, on the good things that Fury did to him. Because if he doesn't focus on those things, if he's looking at the Otto Wallen fight and thinking, okay, I'm just going to get your cut and I'm going to do this, that, and the other to you, there's the potential that he might underestimate Tyson Fury and lose the rematch. Yeah, that's if he gets past Luis Ortiz. There's no guarantee that he will. That cut, though, of Tyson Fury's on the right eye, that could be Deontay Wilder's salvation. If Deontay Wilder finds himself in a real difficult rematch with Fury, going for that cut, and we know he's going to go for the cut, might be his ticket out of jail, Deontay Wilder does have a good jab. It's a very solid, fast jab. Early in the first Tyson Fury fight, he was using it, but he kind of neglected it the longer the fight went on. He was far too concerned with landing a big right hand. And as I've said in previous videos, going into the rematch, if that rematch happens, of course, because Wilder's got this fight against Ortiz. But if it happens, Wilder needs to trust his own boxing. Fury, I've been saying this for a long time, is a very good boxer, but I'm still not convinced that he's that good a boxer, the way some people are making out. Wilder can box with Fury, and he can win rounds just jabbing with Fury and stuff like that, because he did it first time around. For anybody who's looking at the fight objectively, he can. As I've said before in other videos, Paulie Malignaggi likes to say, you can't hook with a hooker, but you can jab with a jabber. And that's certainly true. I remember when Lennox Lewis fought Frank Bruno, and Lewis was a big favorite going into the fight. People were talking about how fast and athletic Lewis was and how good his jab was. Yeah, Lewis was much faster and more athletic than Frank Bruno, and Lewis lived off his jab. That was his bread and butter. But Frank Bruno had a very good jab too, and Bruno gave Lewis all kinds of problems with his jab in that fight. In fact, it was the same in the Ray Mercer fight when Lewis fought Ray Mercer several years later. Mercer, a much shorter guy, gave Lewis all kinds of problems with his jab, which is where Paulie Malignaggi and others get this adage from, that you can't hook with a hooker, but you can jab with a jabber. So Deontay Wilder needs to not be afraid to enter a jabbing contest with Tyson Fury and stick to that and allow opportunities to land the right hand to come off the jab. Don't be so anxious to load up and throw these big right hands. That's how Wilder got himself in trouble in the first fight in terms of gassing out late. Yeah, I know he scored the knockdown in 12th, but I mean, who was tired after that knockdown? Fury or Wilder? It was Wilder, and I'd never seen Wilder that tired before in a fight, So anyway, those are my thoughts on what Deontay Wilder said in this particular interview. It's interesting, and Wilder not being very bright, he probably hasn't figured any of this stuff out himself. It's probably other people around him telling him, yeah, the commentators will bias against you because of this, and Fury was counted out because of this, and Jack Reese blah blah blah, and etc etc. I don't think it's Wilder figuring all these things out for himself. He's not that bright, people. It's just not that bright. He still can't seem to figure out that he made a terrible mistake in showing loyalty to Showtime. That's his terrible mistake. Turning down $120 million deal. I mean, it's crazy. Still can't figure out where he's going wrong. Still can't figure out the fact that Al Haymans and Shelley Finkel's are manipulating him and he's just a puppet on the string to them. It is what it is. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. It's happening. I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month,
you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.